Hey, deserving listeners, it's time for us to continue our journey with 90 Day Fiancé Before the 90 Days, Season 4. Let's watch the show and see if anything of interest comes out of my face. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist, and I'm also a professor, and I guess I'm also a podcaster and a YouTuber, so let's get to it.
When Tom found out that I wasn't in a relationship, he came to me and was like, you are really attractive and we could have dinner together. Maybe I'm not your type or maybe I am. And I was like, okay, well, first off, there's absolutely nothing that's going to happen. And he screenshotted me communicating to him saying, yeah, we could hang out, and sent it to Ash and was like, look what Avery's doing.
He's always been a very deceptive person. So you never really got to know the truth, But you can see by his demeanor, that's his style. You can read his body language.
So this show never ceases to amaze me. So somehow Tom has Avery's contact information. Maybe everyone has everyone's contact information because everyone's on Instagram. And Tom reached out to Avery and asked her out on a date. And it sounds like she might have entertained it kind of, but said ultimately no. And then Tom took a screenshot and sent that to Ash. Why would Tom do that? That's, is he trying to stir? That's so confusing.
So, Tom, I'd like to hear your side to this story. Did you ask Avery out on a date?
Yes, she's an attractive woman. I can ask people whatever I want. I have no one to answer to. It wasn't me that had split up 2 days before with her boyfriend, but hey. And I'm flattered. Thank you for saying yes. And then thank you for realizing that it was a bad mistake to actually entertain the idea and then say no.
Well, I thought it was a bad idea because I had no actual personal intentions behind it, and you decided to screenshot it and send it to my ex-boyfriend.
So it's true. On a normal ethical level, there is nothing wrong with two single people contacting each, one single person reaching out to another single person and seeing if they want to go out on a date. Yeah, makes sense. But the screenshot thing, what's up with that?
I didn't do that.
For I don't even know what purposes.
No, I didn't. So.
Well, that's what I was told by Ash. So if I'm wrong, then I need clarity on that as well.
I didn't send Ash a screenshot of my conversation because that's not what I do.
How did Ash know then?
Because I asked Ash, was it over? Was your relationship over?
He would have responded yes. And then what proceeded after that?
That's it.
No, I lied to Avery. I said to her that he sent a screenshot. He did not send a screenshot. He just told me that Avery did accept to go out with him on the basis on the fact that there was potential for Avery to go out with him.
Wow. So Ash just admitted that he lied to Avery about Tom sending him a screenshot. And okay, so let's break that down, because there's a lot of lying and accusations of lying. And in this instance, we actually have someone that's admitting, yes, I completely lied about that. Why would Ash do that? Well, I suspect that when Ash found out that Tom was going to ask out Avery, or that Tom intimated that maybe even him and Avery have already started something, that it hurt Ash's feelings, made him feel jealous, which is normal, maybe even humiliated on the international stage. And as a way of, and then so he's hurt, and then he gets angry, and then he wants to get revenge in some way, and maybe impulsively in the moment when he's texting or talking with Avery, Ash says, he showed me the screenshot and you're a terrible person for agreeing to go on a date with someone. We just broke up rather recently. This is a frequent conflict that people will have. When people break up, there's not a set protocol. There's no law, if you will, or even what I would consider to be a clear ethical standard of how long you're supposed to wait between breaking up and dating someone. People out there watching this, I suspect that if you're of a certain age, you've had a certain number of relationships in your past. And I suspect that after a breakup, you might have dated someone that very day or the next day or something, certainly within a couple weeks. Now, for some people out there, they might have a different standard. They might say, no, you got to give it 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is. But from anecdotal experience, there's a lot of different standards there. Now, I would say that most people would agree that you don't want to provoke your ex by shoving their face in it, posting pictures on Facebook right away, the day after let's say you break up with someone and the next day you're just like, okay, I've been waiting to be free a long time. I'm going to ask this person out on a date, or this person's been trying to date me. I'm going to go on Tinder because I just need to get my head out of this. I'm going to, have a conversation in a romantic setting with someone else. I kind of need that right now. There's nothing wrong with that. Certainly in society, they'll say there's something wrong with that, but there isn't. There might be something dysfunctional about it if we looked at it, but in and of itself, it's not dysfunctional. People often pathologize it. It's too soon. It's like, well, you really have to look at what is happening for people in the moment. There's a lot of reasons. Some people, they break up a year before maybe years in their mind. Emotionally, they've broken up years before they actually break up with someone and they're officially done. So emotionally speaking, they've been done a long time. But anyway, there's talks about rebound. But the point is that it's normal for people to get upset if you rub your face in it. So you break up, say, a couple weeks later, you go on a date with someone, you do a selfie, and you post it on Facebook, and you're still friends with your ex on Facebook, something like that. Or you're friends with friends of your ex's friends on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And then they see that and they like, oh my God, she's already dating already, or he's already dating, and look how happy they look. That can really hurt your ex, particularly if your ex was the one who got broken up with. So I think most people have a standard around that. But anyway, so getting back to Ash. Ash was hurt. He's probably hurt that Avery is showing interest in someone else so soon, and that it also is this international situation that Ash knows very well that this is going to blow up on Instagram and Twitter and Reddit and everything, that Avery and Tom went out on a date. And so for Ash, he's hurt, and then he gets angry, and then in the moment he impulsively says, you're a terrible person for doing this. That's my speculation as to why Ash would do that. Let's see what he says here.
That's it.
Why did you lie to her?
Because actually at that moment, I was really hurt when I heard that actually she said yes to going out. So to prove I had a really good motive to be annoyed, I said I saw screenshots of them. Okay,
so there you go. He was hurt, and kudos to Ash for admitting that. I was hurt and I was annoyed, and I made it up because I wanted to blast her. I wanted to have ammunition to yell at her. And it doesn't make it right, obviously, but it gives us a reason. Now, what does this say about Ash's personality in general? Well, next to nothing, because when I assess people's personalities, it's over several hours of them actually revealing their inner feelings and thoughts to me to give me a chance to actually have an accurate conceptualization of the personality. But what could it indicate potentially? Well, given all of his other behaviors of what I was framing as sweeping things under the rug, being very positive, being very optimistic, trying to avoid negativity. My hypothesis has been about that is that he was traumatized. We've all, to some extent, been traumatized growing up. So I'm not talking about, and some people are actually taking issue with the word trauma. When I say relational trauma, I'm not talking about necessarily sexual abuse, although of course that would qualify, or physical abuse. I'm talking about moments where you feel like you need someone, and you're sad, or you're angry, or you're hurt, or you're joyful, and you want someone to notice you, and you reach out and no one is there, or you reach out and no one really notices, or they don't notice you in the way that you're hoping to be noticed at the age of 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. I'm calling those relational traumas. So maybe I should be clear about that. I'm using a pretty broad definition within psychology around the word trauma. So a lot of us have been relationally traumatized, and Ash's traumas might have resulted in him needing to deny negativity, to be very positive, to try to deny things that are going to bring him down and other people down, to preserve relationships. People will have defense mechanisms because of things they're afraid of, and we're usually afraid of rejection. That's usually a primary thing that our personalities are centered around, is trying to avoid rejection in all of its forms and all of its signs as well. And for some of us, signs of rejection look one way, and others, signs of rejection look another way, depending on the way we were rejected growing up. For Ash, it's possible speculation. Signs of rejection for him is negativity, and his way of trying to manage rejection so other people don't leave him is to deny negativity and sweep it under the rug. Avery didn't like that. She saw that as shady, and I think more fundamentally, she saw it as she felt as though it was a distancing behavior, and it hurt her feelings, and then she would criticize it, which then would cause Ash to pull away even more, and the vicious cycle would continue, and then they would break up multiple times. And then in the moment, Ash is also lying. So how does just flat out lying? Well, I've also hypothesized that, so I'll get away from Ash. I'll just talk about people that I've actually treated. People who have a knee-jerk reaction for lying, because this lie is just so dysfunctional. Because anyone in the moment would have said, well, if I lie to her, eventually we're going to go on the tell-all, and it's going to be revealed that I lied, not only to Avery, but to the entire world. And I don't want that to happen, so I probably shouldn't lie in this moment. So why would someone dysfunctionally and knee-jerk lie? Well, usually it has something to do with terror of rejection, terror of loss. And there's a twisted logic that goes on in our defenses. So Avery is saying, I might be dating Tom. And then Ash is like, oh, I'm really going to lose her, and I'm going to get humiliated. I'm really hurt. I want her to come back to me. Maybe if I attack her verbally, this is the weird logic that a lot of us have, if not everyone. If I attack Avery and make her feel small, she'll admit she did something wrong and she'll come back to me. Doesn't make any sense, right? But it makes sense to our inner defenses. So if I pull out a lie and blast her, there's this fantasy, maybe she'll come back to me. I of course, have no idea. I'd have to talk with Ash to see if this had any validity for him. Who knows? Maybe there's other possibilities. There's millions of other possibilities as to why someone would do that. The other possibility, the other conceptualization to look at is that when you're growing up and you are trying to evade getting in trouble, because Ash seemed to exhibit some signs of that, of like when he's in trouble with Avery, he would kind of evade. He'd become evasive. He would just say things to misdirect. And usually that's a result as a child where you were being abused or terrified in some way, and in order to survive, you had to move and weave and evade. And one of the ways you can do that is by lying. It's just by flat out lying, and then your propensity to lie, or the editors that will prevent you from lying have to be compromised in some way to survive as a child, because most children don't really want to lie because they have empathy for other people, and they don't want to hurt other people's feelings. So you have to kind of shred that a little bit so that some lies can come through, because you're trying to survive in the moment as a child. And then that editor is so compromised that as an adult, your knee-jerk reaction to lie is much more readily realized. It's total speculation, but who knows? While I'm on the topic, subscribe below, like the video below, hit the bell below so you can get notified in your email when we have new episodes, and comment below. What do you think? Do you lie sometimes? Do you know someone who lies? What's your conceptualization of it? It hurts to be lied to, but what's your conceptualization of it? Because usually that helps us to better our lives and make us have more accurate narratives of our relationships. Also, become a patron of the podcast by going to patreon.com, and also subscribe to our podcast on your phone app. All right, let's get back to the show.
So I just lied to her just to tell her that, you know what, I did see screenshots, that's it. Whether it was a date or it was not a date, I think in a relationship, if the commitment is true, if the love is true, this is not something you do, that's all.
You feel Tom did something wrong by asking Avery out?
They both did whatever they did was wrong. I was really annoyed with Tom.
So I don't know if Ash comes from a cultural pocket where it is common for the ethics around dating soon after breaking up are different than Avery's, which are different from Tom's. We would have to ask them and the people around them, what are the ethics about that? Because there are different cultural pockets regarding that topic of how long one would take. But Ash just said something related to that. According to him, it is wrong to, if you're truly in love, it's wrong, meaning Avery, to soon after breaking up date someone else. He didn't give a timeline. He didn't give it. So I'm guessing he's sort of mixing things up in his heart, that it feels wrong to him because it hurts. And that's what a lot of people do, they'll say like, it's just wrong to do what you're doing. It's wrong. It's empirically wrong. When you look at it, especially other people looking at the situation from the outside who aren't emotionally involved, they'll say, well, it's not wrong. It's just hurtful. It hurts your feelings, which is going to happen. And for a lot of you watching right now, I'm guessing, if you're of a certain age, you've had this happen to you multiple times. It's not uncommon for people to have online presences and post things online about dating and this sort of thing. And so in the old days when I was young and you broke up with someone, unless you had mutual friends that wanted to ruin your life, you had no idea what your ex was doing. There was no knowledge unless you randomly bumped into them or actually called them on the phone, because we didn't even have email when I was young. And so it was just like you broke up with someone and they just, went off the edge of the planet. There was no way to find out what they were up to. There was no way to, Facebook stalk them. You just had no knowledge. There was just imagine, just like no ability to find out. Now, of course, there's every way you can find out for a lot of people. And so it hurts. It's terrible. Breaking up with someone is hard anyway, let alone having to look at stuff like that. You have a couple glasses of wine and you're like, screw it, I'm Googling him. And then all those images go into your head. He looks so happy with that other person and she's prettier than me and she's more successful than me and I'm a loser. These are normal feelings, but to equate those feelings of terribleness and demoralization and rejection and hurt and the grief process, to equate that with you have done something morally wrong by dating someone after we broke up is debatable. Should Avery, is it morally wrong or is it ethically wrong for Avery to have entertained a date with Tom? One could argue maybe, because for Avery, it's like, this is going to be on the international stage. There's so many other people I could date that Ash won't find out about. I don't want to rub this in. And maybe that's why Avery guessed the whole situation. Is it unethical for Tom? You could maybe make an argument for that. There's a lot of women out there that he could reach out to. Why Avery, when he knows that Ash is and the whole situation is going to be so front and center, at least on the show and on the internet? You could say it's uncool. Different people are going to have different ideas of the ethics involved in that.
With Tom for asking her out.
I was really pissed off, not only with Tom, but with Avery too.
What did I do?
2 days after a breakup, it hurts. It does hurt.
I'm sorry, we were not together in a relationship, Ash. I'll just tell you this. I have a lot of men who come into my life who try to hit on me or try to assert types of attraction towards me, and I just assert my boundaries, and that's usually what stops
I was
it.
just being pleasant.
So now Tom's like, wait, I wasn't being a creep. I was just being pleasant. Wait, Avery's implying I was being a creep. Who knows? So Avery, I think, or Ash eventually got to that place. You saw that. We can rewatch that. I think, he's like, well, of course I lied because Avery did something wrong. She did something wrong. And then eventually Ash gets to this place of just like, you know what? It just hurts. It just hurts. And I think that's him saying, yeah, it hurts and I lied. And I wish that Ash would follow that up with saying it was totally wrong for me to have lied about that. And of course, Avery, you can date whoever you want to after we break up. But it just hurt so bad that I don't know. I didn't know what to do, and I was kind of freaking out in the moment. I wish people did that more on the show and in life. Just admit that you screwed up. We screw up all the time. For me, one of the best things I can do for me is to apologize to someone else. I talk about this often, but all of us get in situations like this. You're at work and you get in some kind of conflict. You know, you don't like someone. They didn't do something that you blah, blah, blah. And you go home and you go to your spouse and, this person, I hate this person. You know how that person is and they always do this and and pointing fingers at the other person. I've been there. And all that anger and that righteousness and that defensiveness and that worry about the future, and now it's just going to get worse over time, and I'm going to have to stand up to myself, and I'm going to have to draw boundaries, and I'm going to have to stand up for my... And then all of a sudden, when I'm at my best, something will click in my head, and I'll just say, what if I apologized? And I just get a little relaxed in my shoulders just as I role play that. What if I just apologized? The other person did something wrong. Yeah, I feel that way about it. But I must have done something wrong. There must be something I did wrong here, even if it's 30% of the situation. And then I think about it and say, okay, I did this, this, and this. That was my fault. Bottom line, my fault. I feel like I had an excuse to do it, but let's not go there. I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have done A, B, and C. You know what? I'm going to apologize. And maybe they'll apologize back, maybe they won't, but I already feel better in my body just owning that and committing myself to apologize. And then I apologize, verbally, email, text, whatever. And I can sleep well at night, and all that negativity is just gone. It's just gone. Now, some situations, that's not fair to you to just fall on your sword and apologize. Sometimes you got to stand up for your rights, for sure. But a lot of times, like in this situation with Ash, it's just like, you know what? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have lied. I lied to both Tom and Avery. Or I lied to Avery, which, made Tom look like a bad person. So I apologized to Tom. I apologized to Avery. I lied. I'll tell you why I did it. I was hurt. I was freaking out. We just broke up. I was still grieving that. And to hear about this, it just triggered me. And I freaked out. But it doesn't justify it. And I am sorry. I'm sorry for doing that. You just feel better. But in order to do that, as I often say, you have to have enough differentiation, enough development in your childhood to have a self, to be able to even know those feelings and be able to interpret them. And also to have enough self-worth to stand on so that you can admit that you did something wrong and it isn't generalized to your whole person in your mind. That's what makes it so hard for us to apologize, is because when we say we did something wrong, if we don't have this vast sea of exceptions to that wrong behavior to fall back on, it's like, well, I did this one thing, but that is the exception, not the rule. The rule is I'm a good person, and you have to feel that. And the way we feel that is when people help us to feel that way. We don't just invent self-esteem. Self-esteem is given to us relationally with other people. And if you're not given that early in life, then the admission of doing something wrong, it feels like you're admitting your whole person is wrong, which is abhorrent to the self and impossible to admit to other people. So that's just... The other thing I'll say is that the behavior that I'm modeling, and a lot of you have emailed me about this, is novel. The way that I will model and role play these things, just like, hey, well, you know what? My bad. I made a mistake. It's my fault. I have a reason why I did it, but it doesn't excuse it. I was really hurt, and that's just the bottom line. And when I get hurt, I get angry, and that's my fault. I shouldn't have lied in that situation. That little role play that I just did, for a lot of people out there, they're like, I don't know if I've seen enough people say things in that way, take responsibility in that way. Certainly these reality TV shows don't do that very much. And in our culture, in your families, at workplace, if you don't see this very often and you see the opposite, then for a lot of people, you don't even know there's another option. And this is what I do with a lot of my clients, particularly my couples. The couple sits down on my couch and they start arguing, and they do this sort of this stuff to each other. They do. And if I can't coach them on how to take responsibility, then I'll just do it myself. I'll say, hey, what I'm hearing from you is that you're really hurt right now. And I wonder if what your wife wants to hear is this. And then I just say something to the wife. And then I say to the wife, would that be okay for you to hear? And then the wife would be like, oh my God, yes. If he said that, that would be wonderful. And then the husband is like, oh, so there is another option? Because a lot of times when I'm throwing stuff out there to people, I'll say, just use I don't use I statements, but if you know I statements, the philosophy of it is, when you did this, it made me feel this. When you broke up with me and then you dated Tom, and then I found out you might be dating Tom, it devastated me and hurt my feelings because I felt like it was being rubbed in my face. So you're not really accusing, you're taking responsibility for your feelings. You're just saying, this is how I reacted to it in an emotional way. And when I propose that to people, a lot of times they'll be like, well, she can't be trusted with that. If I'm doing it with the husband, it's like the wife will be like, or the husband will be like, I can't be that vulnerable with her, because when I'm that vulnerable, she pounces and she uses it against me, or she's not going to listen. She's just going to keep fighting. Why would I risk and be so vulnerable? But often people think they're doing that in their heads, but they're not actually doing that with their mouths. They might say something like, and they think they're taking responsibility, but they'll say something like, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for my feelings. What you did hurt my feelings. And you do this all the time. You do it all the time. You hurt my feelings all the time. Okay. So that's kind of owning your feelings, but it's also blasting the other person with criticism. So, and then that creates hurt from the other person, and they try to defend themselves, and the cycle continues. And so when I lay it out, as when I role play it, people will be like, well, one, that's not going to work. And two, that's kind of weird behavior. I've even had couples call me corny. They literally use that word. They'll say like, well, that sounds kind of corny, as if it sounds too nerdy or too from a psychologist's book or something. And they'll say, I could never say those words. It's too corny. So that usually means one of two things. Either one, it is corny and they just need to phrase it in a way that fits with how they would word things. Or two, it sounds so healthy, or it's so foreign to them, because healthy communication is so foreign to them that it just sounds so weird that the only word they can put to it is corny. And so I will break people of that notion of like, well, if being healthy means being corny, then be corny, because that's the only way out of this right now. All right. Well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining me out there. I always love it when you participate with the comments and all that other stuff. And when you subscribe and you like and all that, it really, I look at all the stats. It validates my existence on this planet. It really does, for better, for worse. And take care of yourself out there, because you deserve it. You really, really do.